Hello, I'm Jerry Fort. Welcome to Jungle Jerry's Treehouse. Going to do part 2 of the Magic Treehouse number 28, High Tide in Hawaii by Mary Pope Osborne. Alright, when we left off here from part 1, Jack had just got pummeled by waves while he was surfing, and I don't think he felt too good afterwards. So let's see how he's doing. Chapter 6, Shake Up. That's probably him. He got all shook up. "Jack!" cried Annie. She ran to him. "Are you okay?" Jack just nodded. He put on his wet glasses. He felt shaky and mad at himself. "I never should have tried to stand," he thought. Kama picked up Jack's surfboard from the shallow water and brought it over to him. "I told you not to stand," she said, laughing. "You fell hard." "It's not funny," thought Jack. "I nearly drowned." He's thinking this. He isn't actually verbally saying it. He's just thinking it. "The best thing to do is to go right back out," said Boca. "You go," said Jack. "You go," said Jack. His eyes and nose burned from the salt water. "I'll stay here." He walked over to his pack, picked it up, and took out the research book. "Come on, Jack," said Annie. "Try it again. Stay on your belly this time." "No, this time I'm going to read about surfing first," he said. "Aw, you should just try it again," said Annie. "Not read about it." She ran to him and pulled the book out of his hands. Jack jerked it away from her. He slipped and fell onto the sand. Kama and Boca laughed again. "Why are you laughing?" Jack snapped. "You don't even know how to read." Ooh, that's not very nice. Boca and Kama looked hurt. "Jack," said Annie, "that was mean. Say you're sorry." Jack opened his book and pretended to read it. He did feel sorry, but he was too upset to say so. He was embarrassed, for one thing, because he fell and wiped out, and Annie, she was just surfing away. "Fine, stay here," said Annie. She went back to Boca and Kama. "Let's go." As Jack sat alone on the beach, he looked up from his book. He watched the other kids paddling through the water. "I don't care," he muttered. "I'm never going back out in those waves." "Morgan didn't send us here to surf anyway," he thought. "She told us to build a ship, but how the heck are we supposed to do that?" Jack heaved an angry sigh. Now he was cross with Morgan. He turned to the back of the book and searched the index for ship. Suddenly Jack heard a rumbling from under the sand. The ground started to shake. It shook so hard, the book flew out of Jack's hands. Jack bounced up and down on the beach. Shells were jumping up and down, too. Rocks tumbled down from the cliff. "It's an earthquake," thought Jack. The rumbling stopped. The shaking stopped. Jack looked around. Everything was normal again, except some rocks rolled around at the bottom of the cliff. Jack looked out to the sea. Kama, Boca, and Annie were past the breakers. They were sitting on their surfboards, laughing and talking. Everything seemed okay, but Jack felt... How did Jack feel? He felt sure that something was wrong. He grabbed the Hawaii book from the sand. He looked up. "Earthquake," he read. "Earthquakes in Hawaii have been known to cause tsunamis, which used to be called tidal waves. An earthquake can cause water out at the sea to be set in motion. The water grows higher and higher as it moves toward land. Just before the tsunami strikes, water may pull away from the shore. Then it returns in a gigantic wave that crashes over the land and washes everything away." "Oh man," thought Jack, "a tsunami might be coming." Chapter 7, Ride for Your Lives. Jack had to find out more about tsunamis quickly. He read as fast as he could. A tsunami can strike a few hours or a few minutes. After an earthquake, it depends on the strength of the earthquake and where it took place. After earthquakes, it is safest for islanders to seek higher ground. Excuse me. We have to get this higher ground now, thought Jack, dropping the book. He ran down to the edge of the ocean. Boca, Kama, and Annie were... Oh, sorry. I thought he was yelling at him. Let me start again. Boca, Kama, and Annie were still paddling out beyond the waves. Jack forgot all about their fight. Hey, you guys, he yelled. They didn't hear him. Jack went into the shallow water. Hey, you guys, he yelled. Come back. They still didn't hear him. Jack ran to his surfboard, grabbed it, and ran into the ocean. He fought the breaking waves. Once he was past them, he threw himself on his board and paddled wildly. The wave swells grew as he paddled. He could hardly see Annie, Boca, or Kama over them. Jack paddled faster and faster, trying to reach them. Hey, he yelled, hey. Boca looked back at him. He gave Jack a friendly wave, then turned away again. I have to get them to come to me, Jack thought frantically. Help, help, he yelled at the top of his lungs. The three kids jerked around. They paddled quickly toward Jack with worried faces. What's wrong? Annie cried when they got closer. Are you in trouble? We all are, said Jack. A tsunami might be coming. There was an earthquake when I was on the beach. We'd better ride in fast, said Boca. Stay on your bellies, said Kama. It's safer. Here comes a wave, cried Boca. They all started paddling. The swell of the wave picked them up. They were all swept forward. Jack gripped the sides of his board as he zoomed along with the others. Suddenly, he dropped down as the wave curled under. It felt like a roller coaster. But he stayed on his board as the wave carried him to shore. Jack rolled off into the shallow water. He snatched up his board and ran onto the sand. Boca and Kama were waiting. Good riding, Jack, said Boca. Where's Annie? Asked Jack. Boca pointed. Annie was in the shallow water, pulling her board in. As they watched, something very weird began to happen to the ocean. The water around Annie started to pull away. Chapter 8. The Big Wave. Run, Annie, Jack screamed. The water drew away from the beach and a loud hissing sound came from the sea. Suddenly, fish flopped onto the bare sand. Annie threw down her board and ran. She grabbed Jack's hand as she ran by him. Jack grabbed Boca's hand and Boca grabbed Kama's hand. They all ran together, pulling each other along as they raced to the cliff. Boca and Kama ran up the cliff path. Jack and Annie grabbed their shoes and Jack's pack, then they scrambled up the path too. At the top of the cliff, everyone looked back. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. A wave was rising up like a dark mountain of water. It came surging toward the shore, growing even taller. Look how big that wave is. See, here they are right here. Look how big that thing is. Whew. That's huge. Wow, whispered Annie. Get back, shouted Boca. The four of them bolted back from the edge of the rocky slope. The mountain of water crashed against the cliff. Water sprayed over the top of the rocks and rained down on them. When the water rolled back over the cliff, they all hurried back to the edge to see what had happened. The rocky cliff path was gone. The gigantic wave was moving back out to sea, taking rocks, sand, seaweed, seashells, and the surfboards with it. Scary, breathed Annie. Yeah, said Jack. We just made it. Boca, Kama, voices yelled. They turned around. Jack saw Boca and Kama's parents racing across the meadow toward them. Other villagers followed. The two Hawaiian kids ran into their parents' arms. Soon Jack and Annie were surrounded by villagers. Everyone was laughing and crying and hugging each other. Jack hugged Annie. He hugged Kama and Boca and their parents, and lots of other people he didn't even know. Chapter 9. Telling the Story. Finally, the hugging and crying and laughing died down. The villagers started walking back to their huts. Jack and Annie followed Boca, Kama, and their parents. We felt the ground shaking, said Boca, and Kama's and Boca and Kama's father. We knew a big wave might follow. Jack saved us, said Boca. He read in a book and found out about the big waves. What's a book? Asked his mother. Show them, Annie said to Jack. Jack reached into his pack and took out the research book. It tells about the big waves in here, he said. Books give lots of information. Ah, said Boca and Kama's mother. A book is a good thing. Books tell stories too, said Annie. That is impossible, said Kama. The book cannot move its feet or wave its hands. It cannot sing or chant. That's true, said Jack, smiling. Now we should do the hula, Boca said to Annie, Kama, and Jack, and tell our story. I'll watch, said Jack, stepping away. Boca and Kama's father called for music. The villagers gathered around. A man started to play a pipe. A teenage boy knocked two sticks together. Some women began shaking rattles. Boca, Kama, and Annie waved their hands in time to the music. They stepped from side to side. They swayed their hips. Kama chanted about going out into the water. She, Boca, and Annie waved their hands to show how they paddled out to sea. Kama chanted about how Jack had warned them. She and the others waved their hands to show how they rode their surfboards to shore. Then Jack surprised himself. He waved his hands to show how he rode his surfboard, like a bird soaring through the air. The next thing he knew, he was stepping from side to side. He was swinging his hips. He was doing the hula. Kama chanted about how the water had pulled away from the shore and how they had climbed to safety and how the giant wave had crashed against the cliff. Here's Jack doing the hula here. As Kama chanted the story, all the villagers joined in the dance. The tall grasses swayed, the palm trees swayed, and all the hula dancers swayed too. Excuse me. When the story ended, everyone clapped. Thanks for helping us, Boca. Thanks for helping us, Boca said to Jack and Annie. We're a good team, said Annie. We are best friends, said Kama. Yeah, said Jack. I'm sorry I said mean things. We're sorry we laughed at you, said Boca. I'm sorry I grabbed the book, said Annie. Our mother says friendship is like riding the waves, said Kama. Sometimes you ride low, gentle waves. Sometimes you ride high, rough ones. Annie gasped. She looked at Jack. She repeated Morgan's rhyme. To find a special magic, build a special kind of ship that rides the waves, both high and low, on every kind of trip. Friendship. Whoa, I just got chills on my arms. That's a kind of ship, isn't it? Friendship, sorry. I need a nap. Let's eat lunch. That's the ship, said Jack. And we built it, said Annie. She and Jack burst out laughing. Boca and Kama looked a little confused, but they laughed too. We have to go back to our own home now, Annie said to Boca and Kama. It's time to say goodbye, said Jack. We never say goodbye, said Kama. We say aloha when we greet our friends, and we say aloha, and we say aloha when we leave them. Friends are always together, said Boca. So aloha means goodbye and aloha means hello, sounds like. Friends are always together, said Boca, even when they are far apart. Have a good journey in your magic treehouse, said Kama. Thanks, said Jack and Annie. They waved to all the villagers. Aloha, aloha, everyone called back. Then Annie and Jack started through the meadow. Tiny yellow birds and orange and black butterflies flitted about them. At the edge of the meadow, they came to the grove of palm trees. They climbed up the rope ladder into the treehouse. Out the window, Jack saw the tall mountains, the small village, the flowery meadow, and the ocean. The water was peaceful again. I still have my lei, said Annie. She took it off. Through the red flowers Though the red flowers were wet, they were still a little fluffy. It's proof that we found the special magic, said Jack, the magic of friendship. Annie put the lei on the floor next to the play scrolls, the twig, and the corn seeds. Then she picked up the Pennsylvania book. Guess what's getting ready to happen now? I'm getting ready to yawn, see? She picked up the Pennsylvania book. Ready, she asked. Jack sighed. I love Hawaii, he said. Finally, you admit it, said Annie. She pointed at a picture of the Frog Creek woods. I wish we could go home now. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. The waves started to get higher and higher. No, the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. As still as the ocean when there's not waves. Chapter 10. Everyday Magic. Jack opened his eyes. The sun was setting beyond the woods. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. Welcome back, said a soft, lovely voice. Morgan Le Fay was in the magic treehouse. Morgan, cried Annie. She threw her arms around the enchantress. Jack hugged Morgan, too. Look, Morgan. Wait a minute. Look, Morgan, said Annie. We have proof we found 4 special kinds of magic. Yes, I see, said Morgan. Morgan picked up the play scrolls that Shakespeare had given Jack and Annie in old England. You found the magic of theater, she said. Morgan picked up the twig from a mountain gorilla in the African cloud forest. And the magic of animals, she said. Morgan picked up the pouch of corn seeds from their trip to the first Thanksgiving. And the magic of community, she said. Finally, Morgan picked up the wreath of flowers from Kama and Boca, and you discovered the magic of friendship, she said. Morgan looked at Jack and Annie for a long moment. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, she said. Are you guys listening carefully? Listen very carefully. She's got something important she's going to say. Yes, they both leaned forward. You are now magicians of everyday magic. You have learned to find the magic in things you encounter on Earth every day. There are many other forms of everyday magic. You never have to look far to find it. You only have to live your life to the fullest. Jack and Annie nodded. Soon you will be called upon to use your knowledge of everyday magic in the realm of fantasy. The realm of fantasy, said Jack. Are we going back to Camelot? Said Annie. Before Morgan could answer, a shout came from the distance. Jack, Annie. Our dad's calling, said Annie. You must go home now, said Morgan gently. Rest and get ready to test your powers. Your most exciting challenges are yet to come. Goodbye, Morgan, said Annie and Jack. They hugged the enchantress. Then Jack took the Hawaii book out of his pack and gave it to Morgan. He put on his backpack and followed Annie down the ladder. When they stepped onto the ground, there was a great roar above them. Jack and Annie looked up. A swirl of sparkling light lit the top of the tree. Then the light was gone. The treehouse was gone. Morgan Le Fay was gone too. Jack and Annie didn't speak for a long moment. Then Jack broke the silence. Our most exciting challenges are yet to come, he said. What do you think Morgan meant by that? I don't know, said Annie. It sounds a little scary, said Jack. That's okay, we can handle it, said Annie. She smiled. We're magicians of everyday magic. Jack smiled. Yeah, he said. I guess we are. They walked out of the woods as the sun was setting. Down the street, their mom and dad were standing on the front porch. They waved at Jack and Annie. Jack felt a surge of happiness. There's another kind of everyday magic, he thought. The magic of family. In that moment, it seemed the best magic of all. Hawaii timetable. Millions of years ago, volcanoes rose from the Pacific Ocean to form the islands of Hawaii. Around 1,500 years ago, Polynesians came to Hawaii. They were the first people to discover the islands. They traveled over 3,000 miles in wooden canoes from other islands in the Pacific. In 1778, an Englishman named Captain James Cook made the first recorded European visit to Hawaii. On August 1st, 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States. Today, over 6 million tourists from all over the world visit Hawaii every year. More facts for Jack and Annie and you. Tsunamis were once called tidal waves. Scientists no longer call them that because the waves have nothing to do with tides. The Pacific Tsunami Warning System alerts the public of earthquakes or other disturbances that take place at sea. It puts out warnings on radio and TV. Sirens may also sound warnings. The warnings alert people to stay away from the beaches and move to higher ground. When the first Polynesians arrived in the Hawaiian Islands 1,500 years ago, they brought the custom of riding surfboards with them. So that was something that Polynesians came up with. Oh, does it continue? According to one ancient Hawaiian legend, hula dancing began when Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, told her younger sister Laka to dance. Laka is now known as the goddess of song and dance, and as the patroness of hula dancers. Today, the hula is studied and practiced by people from many different cultures. Because of Hawaii's isolation, many of its plants and birds and insects are found nowhere else on Earth. Sadly, many of them today are on the U.S. endangered species list. There you go. That was pretty interesting, huh? Wow. Okay. Do you want to see what the next one is? This is kind of interesting. I think it's that one. Let's see. 30, 28. I think it's this one. Let me just see here. I believe it's this one. We just read 28. This is 29. It's a hardcover. Christmas in Camelot, Mary Pope Osborne, Magic Treehouse. It doesn't have a number on it, but my wife looked it up, and I believe this is the one she caught that it was, that she found out that it was 29. And then this one here, this one has the number on it. This is number 30. Haunted Castle on Hallows Eve. All right, so that'll be our next one. That might be a little bit longer book. Looks like there's a little bit more to it than these little paperbacks, but we'll find out. It'll be kind of weird reading about Christmas when it's almost summertime. You'll just have to use your imagination. Can you do that? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. See you on the next one. Bye.